Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Diane Show. Stay with us where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, spirituality, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm excited today to have Lauri Ingram on my show. She is a certified interspiritual counselor, and she combines over 40 years of corporate experience with a deep passion for spiritual well-being. Grounded in mindful practices, Lauri guides her clients to discover their true authentic selves. Lauri offers both one-on-one work as well as small and large group presentations and workshops, offering practical and real-world ways to connect with your true nature and allow your life path to unfold. So welcome, Lauri. How are you today?
I am great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome,
Love being
awesome.
here.
Yeah, we've done a couple shows together. I
Have.
feel like, there's never a lack of stuff for the two of us to talk about.
That's
And
true, yes.
what's really cool right now is over the last year, and you've been doing a lot of writing and advertising in Natural Nutmeg, our magazine. And the conversations that we've had, what's interesting is that you have been kind of branching out into another direction, which is what I'll call working with people to design conscious weddings. And
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I wanted to have you on to talk about that because I think that's just so cool. And I think there's a lot of people out there that never even thought, wow, I could actually have, first of all, what is a conscious wedding? I mean, I think to me, it kind of explains itself, but there's people that I think never even thought that that is a possibility because that's the
Right.
whole like wedding thing is so, complicated, I guess,
It
when
really
it really
can
doesn't
be.
have to be. Yeah.
No, no, but you're right. It absolutely can be. It's all in the approach to, what's really happening that day. And that's what I always start with my couples is what is your vision for how you're moving into this phase of your life together? And how do you consciously, with full awareness, create an experience, not only for all the guests there, but for yourselves as a couple? Um, because it really is it's a huge life event.
Mhm.
And the process I go through with couples, because I'm an interspiritual minister, so obviously ordained to do weddings. And I like to tell couples that I work with that I speak a language that's based in love, which is the common language across all faith traditions, religions, and you really can't argue with the fact that we are all love. Love is everything. So that's the language and the approach I take to helping couples not only create that 20-minute ceremony, but do so with full awareness of how they are also using that ceremony to create the energy of a relationship in a life together that's based in full awareness and compassion and acceptance of the other person and non judgment.
Yes, and it seems so obvious, and yet we get caught up in the flowers and the DJ and the food and keeping everybody happy, the
Yep.
mother-in-laws and our
Oh, yes.
bridesmaids and you name it. And the ceremony seems like, I mean, I know when I got married, I did do things a little non-traditionally, but it seemed like the ceremony was kind of like the last thing that you thought about. Like it
Yes.
just,
Yes.
like we did actually write our own vows. Um, but still it's, like there's all this planning and stress and everything else. And it's like when it really comes down to it, isn't the most important
The
thing
important
like
part.
the two of you? And
Yes.
like you said, what is this day about?
What is that day? Exactly. And that's most of the couples I work with at least are open to that and they do consider that the ceremony is important. But I have done some where it's, a little last minute and they realize that for one reason or another, oh, we need somebody to officiate it. And when I start to work with them, and we really talk about the ceremony, I write every ceremony for the couple. I don't have a boilerplate
A
that I just
template.
change the names in. I
Yeah.
don't. I get to know them And through getting to know them, it's really understanding what, first of all, who are each one of them, and what is this new, I guess, soul that they're creating together. What is it? What are their values? What are their dreams?
Because there is
I
a third
love getting to
part of
know
it,
them. There is.
right?
There's absolutely a third part
It's
of
the
it
two people and the relationship, which is an entity in and of itself.
in of itself. Yes. Because while they're aligned in values and beliefs usually, and the ceremony and that step of doing not only the legal part, but the ceremonial part really joins their hearts together. And actually, it's an energetic ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
It's an alignment of their souls into a new creation.
Right.
So it's to me, it's a very I don't want to say intense. It's not the right word, but it's a very conscious process that you
Yeah.
go through and prepare for.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
what was tough for me and probably a lot of people was your there's certain times where I don't mind getting up on stage and speaking. I can speak in front of 20,000 people. But
Mm,
this particular situation for me was very stressful to be on stage almost, right?
mhm.
And to have to be or to want to be vulnerable still and
Vulnerable.
right and convey emotions and like
Yes.
have it be a really meaningful intimate ceremony, but still there's all these people watching.
Right, right. But that's where the energetic part comes in. So when in the ceremony itself, you know, I, I work with the couple and say, you know what, focus on each other. And what I find that happens, it happens to me, it happens to the couples, is everyone else that's there, it can be, and actually in Connecticut, you don't need witnesses. So I've done weddings where there's literally just the three of us. Um, or you can have 200 people out there.
Right.
They all fall away. And it really, you know, I work with the words and the imagery that I said and the energy I bring. It really becomes about the two people that have chosen to make this commitment in a very vulnerable way in front of people they love, people that love them, and they love each other. It's really an energy of love, and that's what makes it so meaningful and special.
Yeah. So I wanted to get to that word love because you've mentioned it quite a few times. And obviously, when we're
Hmm.
talking about weddings, right, it's the theme.
Yes, it is the theme.
So there's an interesting book that I've been reading. It's called All About Love by Bell Hooks. And one of the chapters has this passage in it from she's quoting M. Scott Peck in The Road Less
Mm.
Traveled. And she says he defines love as, quote, the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. So I want to read that again.
Wow.
The
Yeah,
will,
read that
yeah,
again. That's a good one.
the will to extend one's self for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. And it really like grabbed me because I was like, I never thought about the definition of love being like when you're in a relationship, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could be love for a parent or a
No.
child or a friend or whoever,
Hmm.
as a responsibility maybe or a purpose of, or
Hmm.
it being my purpose to not only nurture my own growth, but to this person's as well. Like I kind of looked at things a little separately, I guess. Like I'm responsible for
Right.
my personal growth and he or she or whoever is responsible for their personal growth. And as long as we're both doing these things on our own, everything's great. But
Great.
life doesn't work that way, number one.
But,
So I was
no,
like,
it
wow,
doesn't.
yeah, like, wow, that
Mm.
actually makes a lot of sense that when you love someone, that you're invested in nurturing their spiritual growth as well as your own.
And if I think about my own relationships, well, I'll take my, when I was married, for example, that relationship, there were a lot of lessons there. Some of them, not fun necessarily, but there was a spiritual component, because spiritual relationships can mean the other person is helping us learn lessons, so to speak, helping us take that next step, helping us learn more about ourselves, and we the same for them. And they can also be relationships where you're bringing gifts to each other, and so you can help each other in different ways. Some of them at the time may seem difficult to work through, but yet if you can step back and say, this is an opportunity for me to learn and to change so that I don't continue to repeat the same situation in
Right.
relationships. And ultimately, what that quote also makes me think about, that we are all interconnected, whether it's, friends, family, strangers. We are all interconnected, and we are responsible for our own wholeness, and need to be aware when we're trying to find that in somebody else, because that's often where we might go down the path of go astray, so to speak. But that's a wonderful quote.
Yeah.
That's a
I
book I'm
think
going to
that
have to pick up.
well, the All About Love book is awesome. She talks
Mm,
about, bell hooks. She talks about love from the perspective of not only, relationship love, but also spiritual love, um, community, like love within your community, love after someone has passed. So loss of love, healing, all kinds of stuff. Like, it's a really, really awesome book. And she talks a lot about what you just mentioned in terms of, we're in relationships to learn. And
yeah,
the most difficult thing for me to learn was that when I got triggered by something in a relationship, that was the opportunity for me to work on that. I used to look at that
exactly.
as, oh, that relationship's not good. Like, oh, I shouldn't be
Hmm.
with this person because we have so much conflict, or we don't see eye to eye on this thing, or whatever. It took me a while to get, no, it's not that the relationship's wrong or not good, or, or that you're not supposed to be in it. It's that it's an opportunity for you to work on things because your trigger will come up.
Exactly. And that's the way we work. That's what triggers are there for. And it took me a long time to figure that out too. And I used to do the same thing. Like, oh, I would stay away from situations or people that would trigger me, not realizing those were all opportunities for me to take a step back and pause and say, what about this is triggering me?
Right.
And that's the practice I have now. I'll be in a situation and I'll be like, wow, something here is triggering me. It's not that person. It's reflecting something back. It's that having your relationships act as a mirror back to you, so that you can see yourself and deepen your own self-awareness. And ultimately, I don't know if I want to use the word healing as much as, because I believe we are all whole. We are just peeling back those layers, and removing those limiting beliefs that help us see that we are whole and not broken.
Right. Yeah. So I think that, getting back to conscious weddings, I think that not only is it amazing for, a couple to have an opportunity to do their wedding ceremony that way, but I also feel like there was something that you said, I don't remember what it was now, but I feel like it is also setting them up for um, just a way to be in a marriage
Yeah.
that's way more aware. We use that word, way more compassionate. um they're in a better place, I guess, than two people who come together and, the wedding is all about the hoopla and the, lavishes and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden you're
Right.
in this day-to-day life and you're like, well, wait, is this what it's about?
But exactly right. The kind of the what do they say? The bloom is off the rose, so to speak.
Yeah.
The the excitement's over. All that planning, all of that attention is gone. And now here you are with this person. And in some relationships, then it becomes oh, this is not what I thought it was, rather than saying, how do I see this person as an extension of myself? How do we see each other as a couple, a partner? So many different words that the couples I work with will use. Whether it's soulmate, partnership, it's a joining of hearts, and that you really complement each other. And it takes that initial friendship and shared values and attraction to a much deeper level, where you're able to be really unconditionally love another person, wherever they are and whatever mood they're in at any point in time. You see them for the divine person that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see their heart there. And that's why when I work with couples too, it takes a few months. We don't just meet once and write the ceremony. I meet with them several times. And a lot of it is just getting to know them, what's important to them, what are they co-creating as a life together, and how am I going to replicate that to them in the words that we say, and whatever else we might do in the ceremony. So
yeah, have you had people kind of just give you a blank stare, like, I don't know what we're co-creating, or I never thought about that, or I'm not sure that that's
I
ever
do get
happened?
that.
Because really, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
And
do.
so
Well,
then,
no,
like,
I do get I never really thought about it that way.
yeah,
Usually it's because I actually meet with a couple before they even decide that we're going to work together. I usually meet with them for an hour, because I think it's important for me to get to know them and for them to understand how I work. Because if they're going to commit to work with me, it isn't going to be a little boilerplate thing.
right.
And I have to say, 99% of the couples that if I get them on the phone, they decide to work with me,
Yeah, I'm
because
sure. It's
when
so
I start
different.
asking them those questions,
Yeah,
and
nobody's
they're like,
asked them
oh, I never
before.
thought about it, they
Yeah,
realize that will bring the ceremony to a much deeper, meaningful level. And quite honestly, they wouldn't even reach out to me if they weren't thinking that was what they wanted. Because there's a lot of people out there that could officiate weddings,
mm-hmm.
and if you make the effort to read my profile on Wedding Pro, Wedding Wire, or not, you're going to see that I do things differently. So if they even reach out to me, then something in them is calling them to consider a bit of a different approach. And even writing vows. I have actually a workbook that I share with the couples who want to write their own vows. And that in and of itself could be a very eye-opening and very meaningful process for each one of them to go through, to think about, what is it about this person that I really love? Why do I love them? What makes my heart sing when I think about them? Those are the things that when they really think about it, it really deepens their connection. However they decide to share it in vows or not. Sometimes they'll write the vows but share them privately because they are so vulnerable. And they might do a condensed version in the ceremony. But it's still a process that I take them through. And I just love it because I get to know them so well. And it's a joyous, and it's fun, and it's a fun process. It really, I try to also help them work through the stress, because weddings can be stressful.
Oh God.
Everything around it can be very stressful.
Oh my
So,
God. I don't know
the other
how it
role I
couldn't
play,
be.
it can, I know,
Counselor.
the other role I play is, kind of offer them a little bit of opportunity to, decompress a bit, and take away some of that other stress.
So what are some
But
of the unique questions that you ask them?
um, I asked them at what moment they realized that they were in love with the other person. What was the moment at which they knew that it kind of crossed that tipping point of, yeah, I'm in love, and this person is somebody that I can really see myself committing to. Um, and then I asked them um, what makes them smile. Tell me one thing this person does that just makes you smile. And um, and perhaps even something about the other person that maybe even irritates them a little bit. And then we laugh about it. So, I've had some, very, very funny, interesting conversations and stories with people. But it's really getting them comfortable with being vulnerable with each other. Whether or not, again, they share it in the ceremony, it doesn't matter. The more I help them open up to that, and the more I get to know them, then the more custom I can also write the ceremony.
Right.
And bring in what is meaningful, to them as well.
And we've been talking a lot, mostly about weddings, but you also
Mm,
do all different kinds of,
I do.
services. So what other kinds?
Yeah. So the other sort of thing the other type of event that I do that I actually find that I don't want to say I enjoy doing them, but I feel is such an honor is to do a life celebration or memorial service. And I have done quite a few of them over the past year. And it's a different process, but it's also very similar because I'm in a situation where I work with the family or close friends to get to know the person that's passed when I can't get to know them firsthand.
Right.
But the opportunity to learn about somebody through other people's eyes is amazing. And whether it's stories and photos and what music did they like? That's one of the questions I always ask is, what were some of their favorite songs? Where did they travel? What were their go-to, you know, practices or hobbies? And you just learn so much about somebody. And one of the things that I find I learn from doing these is that, I set the stage for a lot of sharing and very vulnerable sharing. And I bookend it with an opening and a closing. I may bring in spiritual practices that were important to that person so that everyone can experience them, in if they followed practices. But what I find is in the sharing of stories that people inevitably, what I realize is that our lives really have nothing to do with what we necessarily did for a living here. The sharing is always about how that person made somebody feel,
Hmm.
whether it's this person made me feel loved, this person was always there for me, this person made me laugh, this person made me feel pretty or beautiful. It was never, they were a great boss
Yeah.
or, you know,
They made a lot
they
of money.
they made a lot of money. No, no, it's never about that. It's
Yeah.
always about the memories are how they felt as a
Yeah.
friend or a lover or a family member. Um, and that's consistent. And I just seeing that just reminds me of how important it is that we remember that when we're alive. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I really wish we could, I guess the word is change the way we talk about death, because you started to say that you enjoy doing these ceremonies, and then you kind of, took it back. Like, no, I shouldn't say that. That doesn't sound right. I enjoy talking, but you know what? I think it's okay
Yeah.
to say that, because what you're doing is making the ceremony beautiful for, the loved ones who are still here. And so
Yeah.
why is it not okay to say that you enjoy making something beautiful, even if it's, in a celebration of life or in a situation where someone's passed? Like, there shouldn't be anything wrong with saying that, I think. And
Yeah.
I think that the people who you work with, are so grateful and appreciative for what you do, because I'm sure you make it
Yeah.
easier for them, and you focus on the
I
things,
do.
like you just said, like you focus on the things that are
That are
really
really
important.
important.
Yeah.
They are really important. Yeah. And involve uh whatever the person's, beliefs are. I recently did one for someone who was um very aware and followed a lot of Native American practices. So we did a fire pit ceremony, which was new to a
Yeah.
lot of the people there. But it was an opportunity for me to talk about
Mm-hmm. And
that kind of ceremony.
how much better than this, just the standard, walk through the funeral home
Oh yeah,
and go blah
no.
blah blah. I mean, so I'm an
Right.
only child. My mother's an only child. She's going to be 89 in a couple weeks, and God love her, she's like, still doing everything on her own, amazing and whatnot. But I've already told her, I'm like,
Great.
I'm not doing that funeral home thing. Okay, it's
Yeah,
just
no.
going to be me standing up there, and I could probably pull a couple of cousins and my boyfriend or
Yeah.
whatever. But at the end of the day, nobody wants to be in that line.
No, they
you know
don't. They
so I'm
really
like,
don't.
I'm not doing that, Mom. I'm going to
Yeah.
do a private thing, and then we'll do a celebration of life. So I'm going to hire
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
Lauri.
No, and I would love to, because
Yeah.
because that's, and I have mine all written, so that when I die,
Sweet.
that was one of the things I did in ceremony. I mean, in seminary. That was one of the things we actually had to do, is we had to write a memorial service, and they strongly suggested we write our own. So I did, for that reason. That's all I want. Something simple. I don't want people sitting around thinking, what would she want? I
Right.
have, it's not about spending money. It's not about a big thing. It's all about not only celebrating the person's life, but also then, you know, I find that it brings us to our own mortality too.
Mm-hmm.
It makes us realize that, someday it'll it'll be each one of us, because that's what
That's
happens
life.
to us all. We all born, we all die. And
Yep.
um and I also do feel that there is a movement, um and it's actually on my list of things that I want to continue my own personal training on, is the dying process. Like the seminary I went to is just started a new program it's called on thanatology, which is actually the art of dying,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is so important for us to incorporate into our own lives. And as part of that is, you can do these types of ceremonies while you're still living. There's nothing to say you have to wait until you die to have a celebration of your life.
True.
But then also to think about how you want that to happen when you are gone,
Right.
um, because it
Yep.
becomes a very personal experience for each person who's there.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I don't know. I've never been afraid of death. I've never been afraid to talk about it. Probably because I came from, even though I'm an only child, my mom's an only child. But beyond that, my grandparents were, like, one grandparent was one of 7 children, and one was one of like 11 children. So
Oh,
when I
okay.
was born, people were dying all the time.
Nice.
I mean,
Right.
literally,
Yeah.
like all
That's a
my
big
great aunts and,
family.
yeah, all my great aunts and that's just one side. That's just my mother's side. So, it was like every time you turn around, you're going to a funeral. So I don't know. I mean, I have been comfortable with it. So I don't know if that's just
Mm.
because of those experiences that I had, or that I just am that person that, it does not bother me. I can talk about it. I don't, that's hence why we're having this conversation. I mean, we could do a whole other podcast just on death,
No, we
I'm
actually
sure.
could. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we actually could. And I think that there is so much that we each have to learn. And a lot has to do with how death was perceived in our families growing up, too.
True.
For my family, it was very much nobody talked about it. But if you're in a family that talks about it a lot or talked about it a lot, then it is a lot easier
Mm.
when you're older. But it's one of those growing edge for me, fascinated by making that stage of your life. And that's why I love the name of the program, The Art of Dying, because it is something you consciously choose how you're going to go through that stage of your life
Mm-hmm.
personally, and then how you companion others as well through that, and then the grief. And what I always tell people is when I do lead the ceremonies is that they shouldn't hide their grief. Grief is not meant to be hidden, that the
Right.
depth of their grief often reflects how deep their love was. And I think when people think of it that way, they're more open to feeling what is really grief and loss. But it's only because this person was so well loved and
Right.
deeply loved that they feel that way. Um, so
Yeah.
so I don't
Yeah.
try to take, you never try to take emotions away, but acknowledge them as what they are.
Right. Right. And that helps people process it too, because
It
otherwise
does.
you don't grieve and you're dealing with something, 10 years from
Oh,
now that
all
you never
sorts of
processed.
things. Exactly. And we all know
Yep.
that can come in many different ways,
Hmm.
Yeah, physically, emotionally. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Well, this has been awesome. I feel like every time we talk, it goes by in like 5 minutes and it's
I
already been
know.
30. So before we leave, I want people to make sure they know how to contact you so they can go to your website, which is
Yes,
lauriingram.com.
.com. Or you can email me at Lauri, Lauri, at lauriingram.com.
Awesome. Cool.
That-
Well,
That's it.
thank you so much for all this awesome information. And I hope that people will reach out to you to plan a conscious wedding or any kind of
Any kind
conscious
of it's any life
ceremony.
event, any
Hmm.
major life event,
Yep.
divorce, marriage,
Yep.
child, adding children to your family, anything that's a major life transition can be made, it can really become a ceremony. So
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So thank you again. And again, people can find Lauri at lauriingram.com. That's LAURIINGRAM.com. And you can learn more about me at drdianehayden.com or naturalnutmeg.com. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you back here next time.